Hey, Judy.
Hey, Lisa. Happy 2024.
Happy 2024, indeed. Yes.
Do you
Love
know that if you add 20 and 24 together,
it. You get 44.
it's 44? What's my lucky number?
44.
My
Four.
lucky number is
Four.
4.
Yes.
So I'm feeling like this one
This is your
has
double
the,
lucky year, huh?
you got it, you got it. It definitely has potential.
Cool.
I must be honest, I am not sad about leaving 2023 behind.
It
And
was a
yet,
hard year.
well, I started this morning writing a grateful list for last year because
Mm,
I feel that I need to be grateful for everything that happened last year. And I
mhm.
am. I've got quite a few things already on the list.
Good. That's
So,
awesome. Okay. Well, with that being said, we told our listeners last week and viewers, because we do have that YouTube channel.
yeah,
We do have a YouTube channel. And so we talked about that our name for the podcast was going to be changing. And it
yes,
is different today. Sidetrack Stories. So the
sidetrack
Sidetrack
stories.
Stories.
I love
And
that name.
so with episode number 154, we are pivoting. So we
Uh
started
huh.
out here as Sidetrack Legacies,
Uh
and
huh.
then that was lovely, and we shared lots of our stories. And then we moved into the writer's block, uh,
Oh, we did
overcoming writer's.
sidetrack legacies first, didn't we?
That's what I just said.
Oh, but I don't
Yes.
think we called it writer's block yet. I think we changed. That was another change, wasn't it?
Yes. Yes. So we started with Sidetrack Legacies, then we moved to Overcoming Writer's Block, and we keep wanting to tweak because we want to. I mean, we're sidetracked. We have
No
multiple
kidding.
interests, and the Sidetrack Legacies. I think it was hard for people to find us, and then with Overcoming Writer's Block, yeah, people found us. However, you know, we have so many things that we are interested in and passionate about and want to
Mm-hmm.
explore in the world that it felt a bit confining. And,
Yes.
Michelle and mom, Sandy, anticipated that, but they were like, you guys go for it, whatever you want to do,
Yeah.
check it out. And we did, and they were right.
Ah, damn, I hate when that happens.
So now we're into Sidetrack Stories. And, you know, when I think about that title, it's tied beautifully to our writing
It's also the
because
name of our 2 books.
it's the name of our two, soon to be three books,
Mhm.
Sidetrack Stories. We write consistently about our lives for our friends and family. Um, and we have thousands of people that follow our blog, and that is so much fun. We get
Mhm.
comments all the time from people, lots of people in face to face, when they're seeing us, whether at the grocery store, at a family reunion, or um, wherever,
A
saying,
class we take or at the hospital or whatever. That's the good news. The bad news is they don't comment,
don't
but
comment. No,
yeah,
I follow you guys. You are so fun, and I just enjoy listening to you so much. It's like, or I enjoy reading your stuff. Or I've had so many people say that they've been inspired to,
I have
write
too.
their own stories down after they've listened to ours. And that was really the goal. We want to tell people, show people, not just tell, but show people that when you have a topic like this week, we wrote about our favorite quote.
Mhm.
When you have a writer's prompt, the the response that different writers have to that are as different as day and night.
Oh,
And
all
that
across the
is
board.
what we
Yep.
want to encourage and celebrate. We don't want anybody to think that, oh, this isn't good enough, or this isn't as interesting, or this isn't whatever. We want people to know that whatever your story is, whatever your thought is, get it down.
We just want them to do them, right?
Yes. And now
Uh-huh.
with this podcast, we are really, well, I guess we're kind of, we've talked about three directions that we want to really go with the podcast. We want
Correct.
to entertain people, we want to
Mhm.
inspire people, and we want to assist them. So,
Exactly.
first of all, when in terms of entertaining people,
Excuse me.
well, we have fun. We hope people have fun listening to us, right?
Right. That's our only hope is come on, join us, have fun.
And yeah, I was sharing with you earlier that I got together with some of my old, not old, ex previous teacher friends this
Uh-huh.
past week. Don't call them old.
Right.
Um,
Heaven forbid.
and they said, "Oh, Lisa, we miss having lunch with you because you always had so many good stories to tell." And sometimes, what can I say? One of the stories that I shared was, remember back in the day, it was so tumultuous when I was going through the infertility and the adoption
Mhm.
stuff, that it would seem like every week something was happening that I was sharing with the people that I worked with.
Mhm.
And they waited. I mean, and they were on this journey with me. And then when we did get the boys in July of 2006,
Mhm.
I made the statement to my friends there. Okay, guys, the drama is over. Got the family. Thank you for the support. Oh, yeah. Drama was over.
Oh,
Not so much.
oh, buckets, huh?
Mhm.
Wouldn't that
So,
have been nice?
sometimes the things that come out of my mouth, we just laugh at later because who'd have thunk? I mean, sometimes I
Who would
just
have
say,
known, right? Who would have known? Yeah.
sometimes I just say the things that I really do feel so strong in my heart. And then later on, I go, yeah.
Not so much, right? Not so much.
Mhm.
Oh, that's funny. But
Yeah.
you are a storyteller even beyond that. I have a 35-year-old son. And when he was a kid and we'd sit around the campfire, I don't know if you remember this, but you used to talk about the books you'd been reading
Hmm.
and you would tell the story. I remember one of the books specifically was called The Reader.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you were going to talk about the giver.
No, The Reader, and
The
you
reader.
told
Yeah.
the story about that book.
Mm.
And Matthew, when we got home, could not wait to own that book. And he read it, and he read it from cover to cover, and he said, Mom, it was a good book, but Aunt Lisa's story about it was so much better. And I thought, he was probably, what do you think, 10, 11?
Oh, he wouldn't have read the reader then. That would have been the giver. Yeah, the
He
reader.
read The Reader too.
Yeah, he did, but that's about a young boy's budding sexuality, kind of like a Miss Robinson kind of a story
Oh,
set
okay. So
in
it
World
must have
War
been,
II.
yeah.
And that's a much more mature reader. He wouldn't have read that at 10.
Okay, then it
Mm-mm.
was
The Giver.
The Giver.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I'll never forget, he said, I can't wait for our 2-week vacation to hear Lisa's stories. He just loved your stories. And I think he's right. I love them too. So,
When I first started working at the school district where I spent most of my time, I would go running after school with my coworkers. And basically I was the entertainment the whole run. I mean, it wasn't long, but we did it on a regular basis. I would tell story. I mean, when I say tell stories, these aren't stories. These are just things that are going on in life, or things that have been happening, and things
but you
stuff.
have a way of telling them that makes them so interesting and they're so compelling that people want to hear more. And I think that is a huge talent. And I think one of the things in being in the entertaining part of our new genre is that I think the ability to tell stories in that way is very entertaining and I think could really help people see that their blandest story can really have some meat to it.
Yeah.
Um, I dated a man for about 9 years that was a disc jockey, and I would listen to his radio show every day, and he would talk about what we did the day before,
Yeah.
and I would think I was with him, and I didn't know we had so much fun. I didn't realize it was such a great experience, but he could spin a yarn, tell a story, and he embellished a little bit,
Hmm.
but the facts were the facts. And I think that is such a talent and such an art that you go, girl. I think that's a huge, huge, huge contribution you make to our podcast.
Well, thank you. It's fun. I mean, I do enjoy telling stories, and um, anybody who will listen, I got one for you. So,
You
and I
got it.
think Dad, he was always a joke teller. Every situation that came up, he would say, "That reminds me," and then he would pull a joke out of his hat, you know. So I
Exactly.
think that follows in that same vein, being
I
able
think
to
so.
make connections between what somebody else says with a short little silly vignette from my life. I feel creates a connection.
Yes, I agree. I'm right there with you. And I'm connected, man. I'm connected.
Okay. And then after having this podcast be entertaining, we want to inspire people. We
Hmm.
want to inspire people by sharing what's going on in our lives, what we're doing, what we're thinking, what we're reading, so that people will want to come to this podcast to be inspired, to become the person they want to be.
Hmm.
And I think there are other podcasts out there that, will bring in inspiring, you know, authors and memoirists. And we've done that too. I love bringing in people to
Hmm.
inspire me with,
Hmm.
their accomplishments and tell
Hmm.
me and tell us, share with the community how they did something. Because it's like, there are lots of things that I haven't done. And
Exactly.
that is inspiring to hear somebody's rags to riches story, to hear
Hmm.
somebody's beginning of, I didn't know how to write a children's book, and now I have three of them under my belt. That
Hmm.
is incredible.
Hmm.
And we have things that we're moving towards that I think will be inspiring.
Well,
Um,
I also think we're of an age group. We've got two in the 50s and two in the 70s, and we've done a lot of living. And I
yeah.
think that in that living, we've learned things that I think could be inspirational. And I know it's hard for people to learn from someone else's experience, but it's not impossible. And, if something that we discuss or talk about or share could inspire, we'd like to do that.
Yeah. And I think the most inspiring things that we're doing are the things that are kind of pushing our limits. So that
Hmm.
that quote that I shared with you earlier, I was listening to a podcast, and I don't know who said this. I tried to identify the person's voice, and I don't want to say who said it, but they were definitely saying the only thing that keeps you young is constantly doing things that you don't know how to do. And there is a Gandhi quote that's very similar to that, a little bit shorter, that I thought I might include in here. But I thought, oh, that resonates with me so much, because
Hmm.
there are things, whether it was running the marathon and finding a book to help me, put a plan together, whether it's going to college or being a teacher, whether it was doing a blog or starting up a podcast. There are
Well, there
things.
was even a book that helped us when we were together at the furniture store. It was called Selling Retail,
Selling
and that
retail.
had a huge, huge impact on everybody's lives. And it was
Yeah.
excellent, very well written.
I read that one several times.
So did
Yes.
I.
Hmm. And I mean, and it helps me now, because I mean, the thing that I retained from that book was customers, potential customers, don't want to know the features of an item. They need to know the benefits of those
Absolutely.
features. Isn't
What's
that the
in it
number
for
one?
me?
What's in it
What's
for
in
me?
it for me? Yeah. What can it do to help their life be easier, to help something go more simply, to be more comfortable? Easy schmeezy. Those benefit words are huge.
And so that really, this is the benefit part of our podcast. We
Hmm.
want to inspire people to, especially women, especially
Hmm.
especially older women past retirement, to
Hmm.
be the person that you maybe didn't even know you wanted to be. But
Hmm.
something's happened, or something's been said, or something made a connection with you. It's like, I don't want people just to think it would be a good idea, but actually act on those good
Right.
ideas.
Right. Oh, I never thought of doing it that way, but I'm going to give that a try.
Yeah.
That's something that could work for me.
Hmm.
Or
Hmm.
I have an idea about something that could work even better, and that's where I'd love comments.
Mm.
What did you do? What did you try that worked even better than what we just talked about?
Yep. And that's really where um, this past week we were writing about our favorite quote.
Hmm.
And my favorite quote was, whatever you can do or dream you can, begin. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it.
Hmm.
And yeah, I have ruminated about that all week long because I really focused on the beginning part of it, but I've got to continue. I think my post comes in on Thursday this week, and I've got to move in and include not only beginning something, but the follow through.
Hmm.
That beginning something and then the methodical process of implementing that new practice or that new idea or that new skill.
Don't let it go. Follow it through to conclusion. You can always set it aside later if you
Yeah.
don't really choose to do it, but follow it through to a point where you can make an educated decision.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
you make a choice about whether or not you're going to learn something or develop something or try something.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think that is something that people need to be inspired to do. And I think we're a really great example of doing that. We have, like I said before, 153 episodes underneath our belt. This will be 154. And we keep tweaking it and moving it and shaking it. And it's like, no, we are not anywhere near.
We aren't finished yet.
We
Hang
are
on to
not
your
anywhere
hat.
near
We're
finished
not finished yet.
because we are learning and changing and developing not only as podcasters, but
Uh-huh.
this is causing us to become better people because it's that old adage that you can learn something but until you teach somebody else about it you really don't know what you're talking about.
Well, and you get better as you teach somebody else about it. If you want to learn something really well, teach it.
Yeah. Hmm.
And there are things I think just in being involved in doing the podcast and being involved in the blog. And I mean, I think about the computer skills. Sandy and I were not raised in the computer age, and we have our challenges, but the more we do, the better we get and the easier it becomes. And
Hmm.
it's like, I've tried to retire a couple times and I can't stand to stay home. It just, it doesn't fit me personality wise, and it doesn't fit my budget. So, people ask me, well, do you have computer skills? And I'll say, yeah, actually, I do. I would say I don't know everything, but I've been able to pick up things that I didn't think I knew.
Yeah.
And I'm not intimidated by computers. So, I there's not a program I'm not willing to do a tutorial on and step right into. So, and that's the assistance that being involved in this
Hmm.
process has given me.
Yeah. So, and then the last part. So we've talked about, what Sidetrack Stories is. We talked about it being entertaining, inspiring, and we want to use it to assist other people.
Hmm.
So, you and I have talked about, how we can help other people. And, I am a certified life coach.
Hmm.
The things that I have coached people about have been wide, deep, and various, actually.
Hmm.
Um, and it's been so much fun. And so this is definitely a venue that I want to highlight my skills and give people kind of some suggestions, perhaps, about
Hmm.
how they too can move forward in their lives in whatever direction. I mean, I was talking to you right before this podcast about, I think one of the things that I've been talking to a few people about recently is how apathy is such a huge thing in people's lives.
Hmm.
So, I've talked to several people when they retire, the goal is just to, chill and enjoy the fruits of my labor. And
Does that make your teeth itch?
it does personally. I mean, I think to myself, and it's that same genre, I'm going to take care of the grandbabies. And it's like, oh, more power to you. That sounds so awesome. And I want to play with plants. And
I love being at home, but I
yes,
hate being retired. I mean, when I am retired, what I have is playing at home. When I'm working, I have the work I'm doing, the enjoyment I'm getting, and my free time, I can still play at home. So I can have both.
I think lots of people, don't like the fact that you're locked into somebody else's timetable,
Hmm.
when you're employed by somebody else.
Hmm.
And there's some definite relevance to that,
Yes,
but
there
I,
is.
I choose to look at it in a way that you know it's causing me to learn and grow in another new fresh area,
Hmm.
and I don't want to settle into a life of apathy where
Hmm.
that that time of learning and growing and changing and developing is behind me. I want to set myself up with opportunities for continued growth and development.
Well, the way I see you in my life, I have been coached by you and you are amazing. I mean, you are not a person that says now what you should do is A, B, and C. What you do is you can tease out the questions that I need to answer. So you encourage me to become who I wish to become. And what happens with that is, we'll hang up from a coaching session and I'll think, I would have never looked at it like that if it hadn't have been for being coached by my personal coach. And, this comes into my mind, and I hope I'm not getting too sidetracked here, but the importance that the world places on coaches. I mean, when a team does poorly in football, who gets fired first? The coach. Yeah. And I even asked my son this the other day. I said, is the coach so important to the team that it's their fault that the team didn't do well? And he said, pretty much. He
Hmm.
said, if they have a coach that can motivate, inspire, and assist them in becoming a better team, they've got a winning combination.
Hmm.
And I thought, he's got a point there. The
Hmm.
coach isn't there, they're not a teacher. They're a coach. And so they're only trying to enhance what you bring to the table naturally, but maybe haven't pulled to the forefront of who you are or who you want to become or what you can do or what's possible for you or any of those things. So I think people need to understand that having a personal coach is, or a life coach, whatever you want to call it, is amazingly important in your life. So, with that, I just think that we need to recognize that this assisting part of our podcast is ha, Judy at a loss for words. Oh my goodness, is critically important. Critically important.
Hmm.
And I think that with Michelle and Sandy getting more involved, they're going to be giving our people out there in our community different aspects of what that means and what that might look like and how they
Yeah.
might expand their lives by listening. I personally need work on the follow through.
Hmm.
I need work on, I can come up with ideas all day long. Right now, I have 3 things that I'm thinking about doing. We discussed them a few minutes ago. I need to decide priority number 1 and what do I need to do to complete the range of what that opportunity offers.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right now for me the means to an end is finding a nice job with good people, and somebody asked me the other day, why do you want to work here? And I said, well, I want a place that's enjoyable. I want a place where people know how to treat people, and I want a place where I can work 110% during the day and go home and be myself again at home in the evening.
Hmm.
And that's really where it's at.
Hmm. Yeah. Now, in terms of entertaining, inspiring, and assisting people,
Yes.
one of the ways that we have gained assistance ourselves is through some of the books that we've read. And
Yes.
that's something that I wanted to wrap this up with. Next week, we are going to go back in history. We are going to kind of start at the beginning.
Guess why?
So, this is really, it's kind of a self-help, educational, motivational kind of podcast is what we're talking. We've been and we continue to move in that direction. And when you look at the self-help industry, it is, ruled by a few bigwigs, and many of them are men. And one of the godfathers, perhaps, of the self-help genre was a man by the name of Dr. Wayne Dyer.
Mhm.
And back in 1976,
Mhm.
he published a book that you absolutely fell in love with.
Mhm.
Take it
It
away,
touched a
Judy.
nerve way deep. It touched a nerve in it helped me make that 18-inch journey from my head to my heart.
Mhm.
It was called Erroneous Zones. And I laughed with Lisa before the podcast because I recommended it to a lot of my friends and they thought it was titled Erogenous Zones. So they ran out and picked it up and they said, Judy, this book isn't improving my sex life at all. I went, it's because it's erroneous,
Erroneous
not
zones.
erogenous. And it
And
is.
what are your erroneous zones exactly?
Mhm.
What are they? What does it mean? What does
Guilt
that
and
title mean?
worry are the two main ones. Inaction is another one. The guilt and worry are huge, though. And I think for us Midwestern people, I've lived all over the country and they call it good old fashioned Midwestern guilt. We have a reputation for being motivated by guilt. So that was a biggie.
Mhm.
And reading this book really helped me get a handle on that. He actually goes so far as to call it a wasted emotion. And he doesn't just call it something, he backs it up with stories and his.
Oh, imagine that. Okay, so
Yeah.
this week I'm going over to mom's house and I'm going to grab up her copy that you got her back in the 70s. You're going to find yours because yours is buried somewhere.
Uh-huh.
And next week, so that's going to be the January 8th episode. We are
Yes.
going to be, we're not, unfortunately, Dr. Wayne Dyer is deceased. So we're not
Yes.
interviewing him. We are just going to talk about how some of his ideas have become seminal in today's understanding of how to be the person you want to be and not be stuck by some of those emotions and feelings that shut us down. So
That's
I'm
right.
really excited about that. And I think
Well,
if you haven't read that book and you do want to pick it up, you were looking at Amazon and you can get it like in 2 days for $2.50.
that's right.
So if you want to go along on this journey and read that before we kind of discuss it here on the podcast, go
Mm-hmm.
for it.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's just something we're going to discuss and how it affects or has affected us, and how we see it still being relevant. Oh my gosh,
In its description,
25, really
it's
50 years ago. That book
it's
is 50 years old almost.
it's one of the top selling books of all time with an estimated 35 million copies sold. And
Wow.
I think that speaks for itself. I've met the man personally. He was a fascinating man. He had a presence about him that was so peaceful and so
Mm.
calm. And when he spoke his word, it was very believable. So, I thank you, Lisa, for going along with my suggestion because this was a very personal experience for me that this book resonated. But if one person out there finds peace because of the book, then we've done our job.
Yeah. And we're looking for we'd like to do it like one kind of like not really book study, but book discussion a month. And I believe it was 10 that I picked personally. And this was not on my list, but yeah, you got to start somewhere. And starting at the beginning with kind of one of the fathers of the self-help movement, I think would be. I don't know that he's a father of the self-help movement, but definitely one of those movers and shakers. 50 years ago, self-help was in its was it in its infancy?
Probably that's when it
Yeah,
really kind of took off.
right.
And who is that?
No,
This one?
Dr. Wayne Dyer.
This one,
Yeah,
yeah.
this one.
He comes
Exactly.
up repeatedly, and when you start like, there's another person that I really love in self-help, she's my age, she's, had some similar life experiences, and she's gone way further than that, but the first mentorship that she ever had was she was in a study group with Dr. Wayne Dyer, herself, and now I'm gonna forget the third one, but there were 3 people that this motivational guru at
Mm.
that time, not Dr. Wayne Dyer, wanted to include and was developing. Goes back a ways, but everything I read, his name is mentioned somewhere.
Yeah. And what's so fascinating is you and I have talked over and over again how these ideas, they keep coming up in different quotes by different people, but there are certain concepts that we as a culture, as a society, don't seem to be getting, but
Mhm.
they keep being brought up in not really new ways, but different ways.
Little different wording, little
Hmm.
different suggestions, but it's so true. I have I've worked at different places where they come up with some book that everybody's supposed to read, and then we're supposed to learn
Hmm.
from it. And I read this book and I go, yeah, I read this 20 years ago, but it was a different name and a different author and like that. The successful concepts, the veins are continuous. They're articulated somewhat differently, and
Different
that's
stories,
okay.
different
Different
stories.
stories, and I'm sure that the articulation helps it to be
Reach a
sought
different
out by
audience.
different groups of people,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's fine. But that doesn't make what we read back when wrong. It just means that people have developed further um, ways of expressing the same
And I think
ideas.
it also shows that there are certain ideas that are timeless, that have been
Yes.
known through different cultures and different religions, that are consistent with both people who are feel really good about themselves,
Hmm.
and those that are able to present themselves in ways that are very motivating and um, uh, you know um,
What's the word? Inspiring, helpful, yeah, any of those kinds of words. So I'm
yeah.
really looking forward to it, and I'm really anxious to hear your thoughts on it. And
Cool.
if you come back and say, Judy didn't speak to me, it could be that it's because you were born at a time when those thoughts were already in your upbringing. And that's
Hmm.
okay.
Hmm.
That's okay. Those of us that are in my age group maybe didn't have that opportunity.
Right.
So
Hmm. There you
I
go.
can't promise it's going to appeal to everybody, but the article I read said 94% of the people that read this book loved it.
Cool. Okay, with that, Judy, we are going to wrap up the episode number 154, the first episode of Sidetrack Stories right here.
Sidetrack
And
stories.
so
I
we'll see
love
you
it.
next week.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, Lisa.
Cool.
Happy
Love you,
New
Judy.
Year.
Okay, Happy New
Okay.
Year to you too. Happy 2024.
Yes.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay, bye
Great
bye.
things. Bye bye.